Robert Greenwald joins us to start this hour out. He, of course, is with Brave New Films, www.bravenewfilms.org. He is the producer/director of Behind Out Fox, which gave us pretty good insight exactly how this outfit operates. So it was interesting in the testimony today that James Murdoch did mention television and talked about journalism and talked about ethics and standards and all this stuff. And, of course, we had fun with that. I didn't know that they had standards. Robert Greenwald, what's the scorecard? What's your scorecard say so far? Great to have you with us here on the program. What do you make all of this?
Thanks, Ed. Well, I think that on a sort of dramatic storytelling level, to see Murdoch being asked some really tough questions, especially at the beginning of the hearing, was very positive. The fact that he was not able to answer them, the fact that he looked 80 years plus in the hearing itself, and the fact that on the one hand he was trying to say, I know nothing because I'm way above that standard, and on the other hand, clearly fumbling and searching for answers, made it seem as if we were watching the fall of some kind of royalty. On the other hand, I thought actually, Ed, maybe the saddest moment was when he talked about his father and how the newspaper was brought by his father, and his father was a great journalist, and it was a chance to do good. And I cannot imagine in any set of circumstances how you sit down and you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am doing good. By the way, I am destroying journalism. And literally that's what he's doing. You know, we need to keep this in mind. He's destroying journalism from newspapers to radios to television.
What is the newspaper tabloid doing, the newspaper, whatever it is, News of the World, which is no longer in operation, what are they doing hiring detectives? It would seem to me the answer would be, well, they play by a totally different set of rules that journalists do, but we can sure as hell use whatever they come up with, and an anonymous source is telling us, what else would it be?
Well, I think that's exactly right, and that's actually too bad. We should have gotten that question to the British members of Parliament to ask, what are you doing hiring detectives? And hopefully there will be investigations here, and hopefully there'll be some pressure on the board of directors to speak up, and those are fundamental questions that they can't duck responsibility for. It's a culture of corruption. It's a culture where anything goes for a scoop, and it's a culture where it's essentially sanctioned as long as they deliver the goods. But hopefully this will continue, and as you were saying before, Ed, that we will be able to create hearings and questions in the United States so that we don't let it just be an issue over there, because we all know the impact it's having on us here.
Rebecca Brooks is testifying, say that she never paid a policeman myself. In 2003, she gave testimony to the Parliament when she admitted to paying bribes to police, and, of course, recanted that back later in 2008. Murdoch says he didn't know anything about that. And, of course, he stammered through the rest of his answer on that. And he goes back to the generic talk about 50,000 employees they've got. They're all professional. They're great. They're ethical. It just seems to me that the generic route is what he's counting on saving him, that he doesn't leave them with anything of substance. And it will be just in the arena of public opinion as to whether he's a dirtbag when it comes to getting information and going into the privacy of people's lives. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's true that he's working on public opinion. They had Edelman over there. They flew over several top executives. It's a PR firm that I'm familiar with because Walmart hired Edelman when they attacked us on our Walmart work. And they're following the cues that experienced PR firms tell them to follow. However, you know, there are some strong fundamentals here, which, again, people are so up in arms, and you can't hide from the fact, no matter how many times you say, I run a big company, you're hiring private detectives, you're paying money to them, you're paying hush money to former employees, you're paying money to employees who've broken the law, and you're paying their legal bills. You're being sued by people who have stock in your company because you're trying to buy your daughter's company, Murdoch's daughter's company, Shine, for more money than it's worth, and you're being sued because of what's now called the Murdoch discount, which is essentially your stock of a public company is not worth what it should be worth because Murdoch is treating it like a private piggy bank.
You think he'll survive this?
Well, I think he'll survive, Ed, because of the structure of the board of directors. The problem is there are 16 members on the board. 9 of them are so-called independents, but they're not real independents. They're people who have long history with him and who essentially do whatever he wants. When you have the board of directors allowing the fox to guard the chickens, you have a real problem. It's most extreme here, but it's also one of the issues, that we're starting to raise around corporations in general. There is no governance, there is no protection, and the whole notion of public companies means public companies. But it's clear Murdoch and his family, he was asked a question today about his son, and he tried to, with a straight face, make the case that of all the possible executives, his son was the one who was chosen, not because he was son. Because it was his son. I thought that was an extraordinary moment.
Do you believe that Murdoch was out of the loop of all of this criminal activity of his organization, that his too big to know, basically that's his defense today? We're just so huge. I didn't know any of this stuff. Is that going to do it?
Well, again, I think in the court of public opinion, if we keep up the pressure and the questions keep being asked, it won't do it, because as several of the BBC journalists said afterwards, it's impossible. Murdoch calls newspapermen all the time. He's constantly looking for what's going on, what's happening. So it seems inconceivable that scoop after scoop, turns out thousands of people's phones were hijacked, that he never said, how are we getting these great stories? How are we finding out? Or we would call someone to congratulate him. So it's hard to imagine. And again, as we've talked about this is a top-down company. This is a company at Fox News that sends memos out telling people how to respond. So it defies imagination that they had no idea how not one, not two, but hundreds and probably thousands of scoops came to their newspapers.
Here's yesterday morning, Fox and Friends, Ducey and that crowd, how they're playing this.
The company has come forward and they've said, look, this happened a long time ago at a tabloid in London. Somebody did something really bad, and the company reacted. They closed that newspaper. All those people got fired, even though 99% of them absolutely had nothing to do with it.
And if I'm not mistaken, Murdoch, who owns it, has apologized, but for some reason, the public, the media, keeps going over this again and again and again.
Piling on.
Yeah, we're piling on. What was that the spin memo right from the front office?
Exactly. That's yes. Don't talk about it too much. Talk about it a little bit. Say we're piling on. The saddest, maybe, Ed, has been the Wall Street Journal. A paper that once people had many respect for, to see what is going on with the Wall Street Journal as they try to justify, apologize, and not really dig into what's going on here. But actually, this is, on the other hand, we must remember that it was the great journalists at The Guardian who stayed on this day after day, week after week, month after month, until the story ultimately broke through and is now having these incredible repercussions, and hopefully will continue to have, as it should have. Because at the heart of this, we must remember, it's ultimately about one man and one corporation having so much control over our country and Britain and other countries. And that's something that we can't let happen, and we have to stop. He bended the rules. He hired lobbyists. He changed regulations so he could own over 200 newspapers and television stations in the same marketplaces. And that's media consolidation. Here is the poster child for what's wrong with it and how it hurts all of us in what we believe in, which is democracy.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of the dead body? One of the key whistleblowers that kicked this whole thing off globally found dead.
Well, Ed, if we were creating this and it was a screenplay from my previous life where I did fiction films, we'd say, no, that's too unbelievable. Or the bag that was found half a block from Rebecca Brooks' home with digital information in it, apparently. So I don't want to be like Fox and jump to conclusions. But there's an awful lot going around now, and I just think what we all can do is keep asking the questions, keep pushing for investigations in our country, keep thanking those reporters. Now, the New York Times has been doing some great reporting, who are staying on this story and digging, and make sure that it doesn't just end around hacking, that we use it to connect the dots, as we say, to what's wrong with the system, what's wrong with the system of media consolidation, and what's wrong with the system where we have billionaires, be it Murdoch or Koch, who are able to exert such extraordinary, terrible control over our country.
Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films, the website, bravenewfilms.org. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Producer, director behind Outfoxed.